Warning, this podcast was produced by two men who still think that swearing is both big and clever. As a result, it contains quite a lot of it. Therefore, this podcast is not suitable for children, unless they're really fucking cool children. Hey guys, this is a special bonus feature podcast for our Rage Against the Machine episode. We ended up chatting with Andy Coppin, who runs Download Festival, has been in the music industry for many, many years. As I say, we cut it down to about 10 minutes for the actual interview, but here we just thought we had such good stuff and good chat with Andy. We've included the entire interview so that you can hear exactly what he had to say. So I hope you get something out of this. Obviously, if it's not something that sounds like you're interested in, feel free to skip this episode. But I think Andy's a really, really interesting guy. Loads of perspective. Was there for the early Rage Against the Machine. So if you're a Rage fan, I think you'll get a lot out of this. Hope you're good, and we'll see you next time.
Right, we are joined by the one and only Mr. Andy Copping, who has agreed to come on this episode and give us his kind of views on this album that we're talking about. Thank you very much, Andy. Very nice of you to come on. Thank you again, man.
Not at all. No, glad to be part of this.
What we're doing is we are looking at an album that came out 28 years ago, but still means an awful lot to me and Dave. And I think it's one of the kind of the big albums of the early 90s in terms of a shift in my taste in music and opening other doors for me. It's a really big deal for me. And I think it's one of these ones that a lot of people had a similar experience. In 1992, were you DJing at Rock City still? Or you were booking music as well?
Yeah, no, I was DJing at Rock City on their rock night, but I was also the in-house booker, so I was booking all the bands into the venue at the time.
Right, and so you were seeing loads of stuff coming through. You were on top of all of the music that was happening. You must have been aware of Rage Against the Machine's album from as soon as kind of people were starting to put it out there.
Well, yeah, the record label actually sent me an advance copy of the album, as obviously record labels used to do way back when.
Yes, indeed.
And obviously we'd been reading a lot about the band very early on. There was, some murmurings of this band coming from the States that were a real game changer. And when the Advance album came through, it was such a huge shock to the system, particularly as it kind of just came after the grunge explosion, and that in itself had totally shaken up the rock scene itself. But then this Rage Against the Machine album came, and it was literally just getting smacked between the eyes with a brick.
Yeah,
it had got a huge amount of a punk ethic to it. It was really hard-hitting, really hard and heavy album. And it was one of those bands that you knew just kind of had a foot in many camps. The rock crowd loved them, the alternative crowd loved them, the student crowd loved them. Mm-hmm. It really was, a band that could sit and very much did sit comfortably with NME, Melody Maker, and obviously Kerrang, etc. All the magazines and the media of the time. It was a band that just sat amongst all of those different subgroups.
Yeah,
so exciting.
I still remember seeing the band on television for the first time on The Word or something like this.
I can tell you the exact date of it as well. It was No Nirvana. The Late Show special was the first UK appearance.
That was their live one, wasn't it?
Yeah, February 1993, I think was the first. Yeah, certainly the first time I saw them.
Well, that's really interesting because in February '93, they were booked to play the small room at Rock City, which was called the Basement at the time.
I remember the Basement well, absolutely. My God.
Yeah, I mean they were booked in there, and it was absolute insanity. I mean, it sold out, literally sold out in seconds. Now, bearing in mind there weren't internet sales back then. This is people physically coming to the venue to buy tickets, and for the and from the ticket outlets that we had, which were way ahead in Nottingham and Selectadisc, which were record stores. That was the only way that you could buy tickets. And literally, I mean, there was a flood of people wanting to buy tickets for it. And to think now that that band played in that small room downstairs, it was absolute
Jesus Christ.
Insanity. And then the biggest twist to this is that 3 months later, they came back in the May of '93 and played at Rock City in the main hall. And again, that sold out. That, you know, back then it was 1,700 capacity. So they'd gone from 300 tickets to 1,700 tickets in Nottingham, literally in a matter of weeks. And the support band on that show was Tool.
Yeah.
Everything, Rage Against the Machine and Tool on the same bill was really something incredible. But just seeing the growth of the band, and the interesting thing was that, you know, I met them at the first show. I obviously met them when they came and played in May, and I've met them in recent years, and they've absolutely not changed
Really?
on any level. That, to me, they're still the same people that I met back in that February 1993 when like the last time, you know, I saw them and met them was when they played at Download in 2010. And it literally, the intensity and the ferocity of the show was exactly the same as it was back in that February '93.
We were there. It was a magnificent show.
Incredible.
Unbelievable. And unbelievable. And the thing is they're one of those bands, you're not going to see a bad Rage Against the Machine show.
Yeah, they're never going to just do it by numbers, are they?
No, not at all.
No.
You almost, it's that trepidation of knowing what you're going to get, but that nervousness of what it's going to be, because it is so intense. And I remember being at the side of the stage at Download in 2010, and the anticipation of the audience was at fever pitch. But I have to tell you, the four of them backstage, as they were gearing up to go on, Zach, you're thinking, I do not want to eyeball this guy. He was getting really psyched up for the show.
Yeah.
And just the four of them together, you could just sense this power, you know, amongst them. And to think all those years on, they still had that intensity was, you know, it's an incredible thing. But that album, which I know is what we're really here to talk about, is you put that album on today and it still sounds current. It hasn't dated. It's still relevant. And it still has the impact that it did when people first heard it back in, you know, I guess 92.
I totally agree. I think it still packs the punch that it did. And it doesn't sound like, oh, this must have been okay in 92. This must have been okay at its time. It's still nearly 30 years on, sounds like a fist into your skull.
There's not many albums and there's not many bands that are able to say that having a debut record, that having such a huge impact on the music scene, and the fact that, you know, they were so politically intelligent, as they still are. These guys are like proper out there, you know, still fighting for rights and
still angry.
Yeah, still angry, absolutely, and nothing but respect for them.
I think quite interesting as well is when you look at someone like Zach de la Rocha, you know, who's coming out with a particular rap style in 1992. still finding new youth audiences with the things he's doing with Run the Jewels in 2020. I don't think you can look at another rapper and say they had this impact in 1992 and are still having this impact on a new audience today. I mean, like, even you look at the likes of Jay-Z, people like that. I mean, Eminem obviously wouldn't be out for a few more years, but no one has done that, I don't think.
No. And I think really when we saw the advent of nu metal towards the the beginning of the 2000s, and really the inspiration for those bands, and you can go even obviously a little bit earlier, but bands like Korn, Papa Roach, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, they all, without a shadow of a doubt, have to tip their hat and get their influence from Rage Against the Machine. They're a band, Rage Against the Machine, that they stood alone back in the early 90s. Not really that many copycat bands, certainly none of any significance.
That's the main bit, yeah.
I mean, you look at bands like Faith No More, which again, obviously they came out a little before Rage Against the Machine, and the influence that they had, and you can see elements of that in Rage Against the Machine's music. But just the fact that they were just so hard hitting, the fact that they've still kept that, but also the fact that really they inspired that nu metal charge towards the end of the 90s and the beginning of 2000s.
100%. And it must be, you must have seen from the reaction you got whenever they were announced in 2010 for Download, that yes, people of mine and Dave's age were going, fucking brilliant, Rage Against the Machine are playing Download again. But whenever we were there were 18-year-olds in the audience who were thrilled to be able to see this band, because obviously they hadn't been able to at the time, but they know the legacy and they were excited to be able to see this happening. It still carries on.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I think that the generations of music fans that hadn't seen them, when they first came out, and the thing is, the beauty about rock music, I think in particular, is the fact that it's kind of bizarre referring to Rage Against the Machine as a heritage act, but if you think of the bands that they have influenced further down the line, that then those bands that got young teenagers into them, and again I'm referring to the Korns, the Linkin Parks, the Deftones, etc., that fans of those bands are going, yeah, I love these acts, but these bands are saying, Rage Against the Machine was the reason that I started a band. So these young fans are going, well, I kind of want to see what they can go back and listen to the music, but when Rage Against the Machine go out on the road, it's the first opportunity that these young fans can go and see the band that influenced the acts and their favorite acts of that moment.
Yeah.
And certainly, I mean, the fact that when Rage Against the Machine played at Download in 2010, the expectation and when they came on, and the fact that we had to stop the show twice because the audience was going great. We've never had that at Download, where we've had to stop the show twice, literally in the first number. It was absolute insanity. I mean, I'm getting chills thinking about it and talking about it now, because remember, this is just 4 guys. There's no, there's no tapes. If you look at, I mean, I say this a lot about Tom Morello. Tom Morello comes on with one guitar, does the whole show with one guitar. He's not changing. You're just getting, and this is going back to that whole punk ethic again.
Absolutely.
Then just coming out, smashing you in the face from start to finish. And when the show's over, you're kind of going, what the fuck just happened to me?
Yeah, you're reeling from it. Totally.
Yeah, you feel like you do when you've come off a roller coaster at the end of that show. It's kind of full of like spent adrenaline.
Totally. And I think that's what makes them a very, very special band. And I mean, even now, if you go into rock clubs and rock bars, I mean, I know they're closed because
But
of
not,
COVID,
yeah.
but Killing in the Name is the staple diet. You knew as a DJ, if whenever you put that on, that is going to absolutely fill the dance floor.
Yeah, that is peak set, just wiping out.
Yeah.
My early memories in my little regional club in Luton, where I used to go as a like 16-year-old. Still remember that song coming on and the dance floors being as violent as the roughest hardcore gigs I ever went to. Just in a club, just that song, just like never seen anything like it before. I can only imagine what they were like in Rock City.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was just craziness. And the thing is, we used to have a Thursday night, which was a student night. The Friday night was the rock night, and the Saturday night was the alternative night. At that time, Killing in the Name was the biggest dance floor filler on each of those nights. Now that again tells you the crossover that the band had at the time.
Yeah.
You've got three, and I have to say, at the time, quite distinctive audiences, but Killing in the Name in particular was just huge. Bullet in the Head, the same. Know Your Enemy, Bomb Track. I mean, they're 4 songs from that record that, without a shadow of a doubt, were the staple diet of rock DJs.
I remember I didn't start really DJing rock clubs until probably 94 or so, 95.
Oh, you're such a young boy.
I know. But that album is a godsend for a rock DJ. It's like, oh shit, everyone's getting a little bit, flaky, or oh shit, I shouldn't have played this song. Everyone's gone to the bar. All you need to do is put on one of those songs, and like you say, you got a plethora to choose from. And as soon as the first bass notes of Bullet in the Head come on or whatever, everyone's like, "Oh, I see. All right, yeah, I'm back now." Bam, and you're off. And I was going to say, whenever they announced the Reformation around 2009, that must have been one of the easiest decisions you ever made. Going, I'm going to try and get these guys.
Oh, I mean, literally, no question. We had to have them.
Yeah,
such an important band. And the fact, this is the bizarre thing that people have kind of forgotten about is, during Rage Against the Machine's career, that they came in, it was like an atomic bomb going off when the band first came out, and particularly with that first record. But slowly but surely, they did start to wane in popularity. It happens to a lot of bands, and it started to fade by that mid 90s, and they broke up. And in terms of their ticket selling capability, they weren't that hot band to go and see. Certainly, the advent of Britpop, which came in the mid 90s, really kind of put a bit of a cloak over really intense rock bands like Rage Against the Machine. So when they were looking at reforming, if you look back and say, well, where were they when they kind of broke up? They weren't in the greatest of places. But when they did reform, it was like that was the band everybody wanted to go and see. Right. And they ended up being a bigger band, and actually are now, I would say, a bigger band than they've ever been. There's not many acts you can say that about. The whole thing with the Guns N' Roses Reformation, they were huge, huge, huge back in the day.
Yeah.
Purists will say it's not a proper Reformation, but it's as close as it's going to be.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Roses, and it's been massive for them. But I wouldn't say that I would say they're probably as big as they were. They're certainly not bigger than they were.
No, that's fair.
They, without a shadow of a doubt, they have become a far bigger band than they were ever. And that's an incredible thing to say, a remarkable thing to say about any act.
That's very true.
That's the pull that the band have.
And I think that's probably partly because they did 3 albums and 1 kind of compilation. They never went shit, and they never did it whenever it was obviously their heart wasn't in it. They stopped whenever they were like, all right, we're done. And so nobody ever lost respect for Rage Against the Machine and thought, oh, well, they're just doing it for the money. They did. They stopped and came back when they wanted to. And again, they weren't doing it for money in 2010. They were doing it because, all right, yeah, we still want to do this.
I mean, part of me wants to say that they weren't doing it for money. I did pay them a hell of a lot.
That's fair enough.
I'm sure they gave it all to charity.
Yeah, no, and of course I would pay it again. But then again, that's the demand of the act.
Yeah,
there was no reluctance or resistance from festival promoters throughout the world when Rage Against the Machine come back. Is like saying, listen, we're ready to write the check. This
exactly.
is big news. They're one of those bands that obviously headline Reading and Leeds, big deal there for them. That whole thing, them doing that free show in Finsbury Park, which was amazing. I mean, the fact that campaign online to get Killing in the Name to number 1, the fact that Radio 1 slipped up and didn't play the edit, and then obviously it was enough to inspire the band to get back together and get out there. And the fact that they came to the UK, because obviously where that campaign started online, and to do that free show for the fans. I mean, again, just shows what kind of band that they are.
Definitely. Well, I've got my fingers crossed that maybe 2022, when it's the 30-year anniversary of the album, that it would be nice to see them do another big.
Imagine. I mean, it would just be incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, 30 years. That's the scariest thing. I remember when I first started out DJing. I remember playing it was Norman Greenbaum's "Spirit in the Sky" in 1980, and it had come out in 1970. And I remember saying, "Oh my God, this song is 10 years old. How old is it?" Yeah. And when you look back now and you look at the stuff that gets played and the things that are still having a huge impact on people, and like, oh my God, Killing in the Name is close on 30 years old. It's unbelievable.
I know. Let's never think about it like that. It doesn't end well.
I think I had long hair the first time I listened to it.
I think we all did.
Yeah, no, those were the days.
Yeah.
Oh, wicked. Dude, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all that. That's absolutely brilliant. Really, really appreciate it. And like I say, if you can get them back at Down Low, dude, we're front of the stage. We're up there.
They are on the shopping list. They're all. Let's never give up hope.
Yeah, indeed. Awesome. Look, thank you again, Andy Copping. An absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Pop Collaborate and Listen. It was produced and edited by us, for which we can only apologise. We are on Twitter at PCL Podcast, on Instagram also at PCL Podcast, and facebook.com/PCL Podcast. All of these, plus links to our various Spotify playlists, etc., are on our website, which is pclpodcast.com. Please feel free to get in contact via any of the social media or on pclmusicpodcast@gmail.com.